All right, so I just did something that I said I was never gonna do. I joined on staff with Ping Golf as one of their brand ambassadors. Really cool stuff we're gonna go over. I'm gonna do an unboxing today talking about all the cool clubs and golf bags that I got. We'll go over each one and some of the kind of neat things that you're not gonna hear about Ping Golf and about each one of these clubs, the engineering that goes into those. But why would I not wanna be on staff with a club company? Well, here at Top Speed Golf, what I'm about is helping you with your golf game and doing what's absolutely best for you. So if I get on staff with a company and maybe they release a club that isn't that good or they do something I don't really agree with, a lot of the companies are just churning out club after club after club. Well, they're gonna want me to do reviews on those and speak highly about those. And I don't ever wanna do a review on a club that I don't think is the absolute best club possible. And that's why I'm really excited to get on staff with Ping. I always knew that they made a really high quality club, but after learning a lot more and visiting Ping for a couple of days, talking with some of their lead engineers, I was really amazed to see just how much goes into that. And we're going to talk about some of the unique things that Ping does that none of the other manufacturers are going to do, or that none of the other manufacturers currently do, that makes their club so great and why I'm so lucky to be on staff with them. So it's pretty cool. Got to be one of their brand ambassadors, about 10 of us, tour players like DiMarco, short game specialist Stan Utley, Chris Como, who's Tiger Woods coach, former coach. And so it's just a handful of people. They sent me all kinds of cool clubs. Let's jump right in. I'm gonna unbox them one at a time and talk about some of the cool features of each of the clubs. Now, I'm not gonna be hitting a lot of shots in this video. I'm just gonna be talking about the clubs. I know not everybody is into that, but if you're into golf clubs, you're gonna really get a lot out of this. I got some really neat stories for you. Let's go and get started. All right, so let's start with the golf bag here. One thing that people don't know is Ping has one of the largest companies for custom golf bags. So I know in college when I played golf, we always had a Ping golf bag with our college logo on it. You can do the same thing for your business or just get your name on your bag. Really easy to do. Some companies charge an absolute fortune to get anything custom on your golf bag. They want to keep it all just off the rack. It makes it easier to produce. And there's not a huge amount of money to make off custom golf bags and stuff like that. So that's one thing, you'll see a theme in this with Ping. They always just go the extra mile to kind of do what's right for you, for the person that's buying the equipment. They really stand out, even from when they first started, just really doing what's right for the customer. So really cool staff bag here. Actually, I haven't seen any of this stuff yet, just now unboxing it. So we'll see what it looks like. So we got my Ping logo. Then like I was mentioning, they can do on the, whether you have a staff bag or just a stand bag, I think they sent me one of each. But you'll see on the front, they can put your name on there and your company logo. If you're on a team or something like that, they can put a team logo. So it's pretty cool. And like I said, they're not gonna charge you just an absolute fortune to do something like this, like some of the other companies will. So really nice bag. Let's go ahead and put some clubs in it. Okay, so let's start out with the Woods. I spent a couple days out at Ping making a trip out there to Phoenix and learned a ton when I was there. Big shout out to Paul Wood, Eric Hendrickson, all the guys over at Ping. I learned an absolute ton when I was there about how clubs are made, some of the stuff that goes in behind the scenes that I wasn't aware of, and I felt like I already knew quite a bit before going in. So let's take a look at some of the Woods that they have and some really cool stories with these. They'll talk about kind of the Ping difference. So here we have the brand new Ping 410 Plus driver, and this thing is pretty sweet. So when you get fitted there, if you get a custom fitting, you'll go out to the range, and you've probably seen this from some of the commercials, but they have a big, probably 50-foot tall net. From the day we were there, the tees were a little bit up, so it's only about 275 to the bottom of the net, and then they got this big, big, tall net. So I started to hit some of the Woods. I'd been fit for some other clubs there. I was getting to the wood section of the fitting, and I hit the first one, and I kind of mishit it a little bit, and I was like, dang, that felt pretty good. You know, this club was pretty hot, it felt like, whenever I hit the first one. Well, it hit about 3/4 of the way up the net, and I was like, wow, that was pretty far for a miss hit. The next one I hit, I absolutely crushed it, and it flew over the net into like a Greyhound bus parking lot behind the Ping driving range. So I had to stop my driver fitting, but I'll tell you what, it was amazing how good this thing felt. So really, really hot driver. I'm excited to take this out on the course because I feel like this is finally going to make a replacement. For those of you, if you've been following me, you know I've had my Ping I-15 driver forever. This one's definitely going to take over. But I want to talk about a few things with this driver, the difference that Ping has. So the level of engineering that goes into all these clubs is kind of crazy. Even the head cover. You'd say, okay, this is like a normal head cover. It's a little bit like the custom kind of leather head covers that you have, the really expensive ones that you'll see in private golf shops. They wanted to make one that was like that, and they didn't just want to make any old head cover. So they actually did a test where they made the head covers different weights. And they had people test out and see which one felt the best to them as far as just the weight of the head cover. And then they designed different shapes so they'd be more aerodynamic. So if you have your head cover on the ground and it's windy that day, let's say it gets up to a 25-mile-an-hour wind is what they wanted to have this hold up to, but it will not blow off the tee up to a 25-mile-an-hour wind. So they actually had a guy in a leaf blower, one of their interns, go out and blow head covers in the different shapes and test those out there. That's kind of how nuts they are on their engineering, and that's the level of quality that goes into everything. Even just a head cover that looks like nothing, you know, they've put a lot of thought into all the clubs. Now, one of the other things that Ping does is they never put out a golf club with what they say is compromises. So they want it to perform its best, but not compromise some other area. One of the things that Ping gets knocked on a little bit is it's almost like people say, well, Ping is a little bit behind on the technology curve, and they're actually not. They're way ahead on the technology curve, but they're not going to put something into a club if it's going to decrease performance at all. One of the things that's really tough when you're making a golf club because of the manufacturing processes and just how paper thin this metal has to be, is that whenever you're making a driver, we'd all love to have those movable weights in the driver head. Put one in the toe, put one in the heel. That'll help you to hit a fade, hit a draw, whatever your shot shape, your shot bias is. Now, companies have been doing that for a long time, and forever, Ping wouldn't do that to their drivers. And the reason is, whenever you have the adjustable weights and you put them in different areas, it's really difficult because of the manufacturing processes, and you just can't make the screw that the weight goes into weigh nothing. It has to weigh something. So that moves the center of mass of this club to an area that's less desirable. Now, one of the clubs, their last club is the G400 Max, and the Max stands for the highest moment of inertia that they've ever had, meaning that whenever you hit it off the toe or you hit it off the heel, the club is not going to twist as much. Now, if I start putting movable weights in the sole of the club, but that reduces my moment of inertia, then I'm not going to have as consistent of a driver. So they've had the ability to do movable weights for years and years, but this is the first time that they've ever had a movable weight driver that didn't decrease, or the ability to put that in there and not decrease the moment of inertia. This is the first driver with the removable weight. You can put it toward the toe or the heel to give you a little bit more fade or draw, but they didn't compromise at all on the MOI. Still the most forgiving driver on the market, the highest MOI, plus it has that nice movable weight. So you think, well, you know, that couldn't be that much. You know, putting a little piece of metal screw that would go, you know, in different areas of the club shouldn't be all that much. But you know, these one weight, this is I think the stock is a 14 gram, but I have to check the little movable weight on the back, but that's probably like 7 or 8% of the total weight of the club. So if you start putting these movable weights all over, or some drivers you'll see a big channel or a slot that goes in the middle of the driver face, all that metal that makes up that channel is putting weight in an area of the club that's less than ideal. So having that metal channel can decrease performance. Same thing if you have all these different channels in different spots. We want that center of gravity to be as far back away from the face and as low as possible. That's exactly what they were able to do with this particular weight configuration. Same thing with the removable shaft. Forever, Ping didn't have a removable shaft where you could change the loft. And again, it's very difficult to design a material and a hosel configuration that allows you to adjust without pulling a bunch of weight toward the hosel of the club and decreasing performance. You don't want the weight over here by the hosel. So I can talk a little bit poorly about, as I'm wearing Nike clothes. Nike Golf used to make their drivers, and you'll notice that Tiger Woods always said, well, you know, I always played a fixed shaft driver. Well, Nike's not making any clubs anymore, so I can kind of talk a little bit about them. So they always made a fixed hosel in the driver for Tiger Woods. He didn't have a removable, adjustable hosel. And you kind of wonder, well, why is that? Is Tiger just old school? Well, the fact is, Nike just made a big clunky hosel adjustable weight there. It had way too much mass in it. Now it's bringing all this weight over toward the hosel. The club isn't going to perform as well with that type of technology. Now it's great for the company to sell a lot of drivers because now they can fit them more easily. You can try out different shafts. You can do all kinds of this cool stuff with a removable or adjustable hosel, but it decreased performance. Ping isn't willing to do things like that. If it can't be the best quality club and with any feature that it has, then they're not going to do it. So this club is really cool. They also did a lot of things with acoustics. one thing that people don't know is whenever you're making a driver, it's very easy to make a good performing driver that sounds terrible. A lot of the best performing drivers sound like a tin can, like baseball bat, really high pitch. It's just not very pleasing to the ear. So they do a lot of things on the internal parts of this club to make the sound waves and the acoustics sound really nice to your ear. And I think this is the best sounding driver that I've heard in a while that came out from Ping, so really nice. The top of these little turbulators actually reduces a little bit of friction with the air and helps it to go a little bit faster. It's probably not a huge deal, but it's, you know, probably 1 mile an hour, 2 miles an hour faster. And, you know, if you can get it for free miles per hour, nothing wrong with that. With the shaft itself, so this is an interesting story. With their Ping Tour shaft here, this is a really low spin shaft, and it's actually a pretty stiff shaft. I got this one tipped an inch to make it even stiffer at the tip. This is going to reduce spin. But one thing I didn't realize is when they designed these, they always felt fairly soft to me. Whenever I played a Ping shaft, I was like, man, this is a fairly soft feeling shaft. It doesn't feel real harsh and stiff and rigid, even when you got the really stiff performing shafts. And I realized one of the reasons for this is there's 2 ways your shaft can bend. And I was talking with engineers about this. So your shaft can bend in what's called lead and lag deflection, meaning that this actually bends the shaft like this. But it also has torque. So it will twist this way, kind of like imagine a clock. You're turning a clock like this. I'm just not going to be able to bend that enough to where you can see that there. But it has this torque factor too that goes down the shaft. Now, what they did is they designed a shaft that's nice and stiff to reduce spin on this type of flexing of the shaft, but then they kept it pretty soft on the torque rating, comparable to shafts that are this stiff. So it feels nice and soft because when you hit the ball, it has a little bit of that softness because the torque is a little bit higher on there. So I thought that was something that's kind of interesting with Ping that they did, to just always thinking about ways to make the clubs feel a little bit better, go the extra mile, and that kind of thing. They even moved some weight around in this club head in their woods this year to make them a little bit less weight in the grip end, and move that weight around to make the club head even more forgiving here. So pretty cool stuff. So that's the driver. Let's go on to the Fairway Woods, which I have to say, this is the best fairway wood that I've ever hit in my life. So let's jump right in. All right, so let's jump in with the G410 Fairway. This thing is really hot. So I hit the same thing. I was hitting this before the driver when I was getting my fitting done, and I hit a few, and the same thing. The first couple, you know, you're not always gonna hit it exactly perfect, but I hit my first shot. It was a little bit of a miss hit, not bad, but then I look over to the TrackMan radar that's measuring all the stats for this, and the 3-wood on the miss hit went 275, which I can't hit my 3-wood on a perfect shot 275 with my current model, and it felt like a cannon, right? Even on a little bit of a miss hit. The next one, so I hit a couple more, and I was getting around probably 285 on average, and then I asked, okay, what can Bubba do on one of these 3-woods? I was wanting to know, like, what's the farthest you've seen? So he said that he's seen Bubba hit one of these 3-woods 310, which is pretty crazy. So I gave it a good rip, gave it everything I had. I could only get to about 302, but that's just nuts with a 3-wood. You're not supposed to be able to hit a 3-wood that far. So the cool thing with this, it is adjustable, so I may have to add a little bit of loft if I want it to go a little bit shorter, which would be a good advantage because now you can get to come in a little higher into the greens and land a little bit softer, even though you're not giving up any distance. So again, this thing is super hot. It still has the turbulators on the top, and I have to say the feeling of this is amazing. There's only been a few clubs in my entire golf career. I've hit hundreds and hundreds of golf clubs, but when you first hit it, you think, man, this is a heck of a club. This thing is really different than the other ones out there. And I had that same sensation with this 3-wood and the hybrid that I'm going to talk about in a minute. So this thing is really, really hot. Again, I got the Ping Tour shaft. There's a little bit of a stiffer shaft, and nice club. So the hybrid is the next one, and a little bit of a similar story there, although on the hybrid I hit one of my first swings, just crushed it, hit it as good as I could. And when I started getting loosened up with this one, like I said, the 3-wood was going crazy. I was probably averaging 285 or something like that. When I got over 300 with some of the ones I really tried to take a rip at. With this hybrid, when I tried to take a rip at it, I was getting some of them up around 275. So it may cause a little bit of a problem where I'm not gonna have any clubs that are short enough, which is a good problem to have. But this one, I don't think I miss hit it once. Like I said with the 3-wood, there's only a few times in my life when I first hit my Ping I-15 driver, I was like, this thing, for me, I was like, this is something unique, something special about this. I'm gonna be able to hit this really well. The same thing with this 3-wood and the same thing with this hybrid. As soon as I hit it, I don't think I've mishit one yet with it, probably 15, 20 swings. And the same setup, same type of shaft. One thing to make a note, whenever you're getting your woods fit, so if you have a 65 gram weight shaft in your driver, maybe you have a 55, maybe you have something different. But usually what the rule of thumb is, when you go to your 3-wood, you're gonna get 10 grams heavier. So if I have a 65 in the driver, it'll be a 75 in the 3-wood and 85 in the hybrid shaft. Now, if you struggle a little bit with distance, I might recommend keeping those all fairly light. So if you're really trying to get as much distance as you can, you may wanna stick with the lightest weight shaft possible for your driver, your 3-wood, and your hybrid. But I'd say if there's one club that I say that you would have to hit this year, of every club that's on the market, this Ping 410 hybrid is the one. I've never felt a hybrid that felt this good. Launched super hot, really nice and high. And the cool thing is, if you hit these too far, then you can always get a little bit more loft, and that's only gonna make things better because now it's coming into the greens softer, it's landing on them softer. So this one's pretty cool. So I got a 19-degree hybrid. Again, I may have to turn that up to 20, 21 degrees to get it to go a little bit shorter and land a little bit softer on the green. Now this Ping putter, so this is the Sigma 2, the Tyne Stealth. So it's just a black finish is why they call it the Stealth, I think. But a really cool putter here. Let me cut off this tag. One thing that when I got fit for the putter, they have this really cool, and again, this is just another thing that Ping does. It's a Ping kind of difference that no other manufacturer is gonna do. So they have this 1 foot thick granite slab. It's about 60 feet, either 60 or 80 feet, I'm not sure. But they have this entire room with this giant granite slab. I mean, it's probably 8 or 10 feet wide, a foot thick and 60 feet long, and it's perfectly level. So they basically built this granite slab to be perfectly smooth, perfectly level, and then they put it on its own foundation. So even if the building around it fell down, it would all be on its perfectly level foundation. And then they built everything else around it so that they would have, really they went through all that expense, all that crazy effort, just so that they would have a perfect putting surface. Now, I can't remember what the stimp meter on this was, but it was something crazy. Like a normal green, they say the stimp meter would be like a, like a 6 on a stimp would be pretty slow or really slow. A 10 would be getting up pretty fast. And if you see the major championships, these greens that are just lightning fast, they'd be rolling like a 14 or so. So I think at Oakmont they were 14 during one of the last opens. So on this perfectly smooth granite polished slab that's 60 feet long, that rolls perfectly level, it's rolling like a 15,000 or something ridiculous. They're saying if you just tap the ball, it will roll all the way down across the slab. That's how smooth and fast it is. So the reason they did this is just to be able to better test their putters. They want a perfectly smooth level. That way they know if they see a putt curve or something go offline, they can trust that it was something that happened with the putter or with the golf ball. Another little interesting side note is the dimples on the golf ball. And this is something that's that I never would have thought to be true. But the dimples on the golf ball are not perfectly smooth. So if you catch a dimple, one side of a dimple or another side of a dimple, it can actually throw your putt off. The research that I've heard on this is as much as a half of a cup or a third of a cup from 12 to 13 feet. Now, it doesn't mean that you're always gonna hit it that far offline, but just shows you, we're not gonna always make the putts that we think we're gonna make. Even if we hit a perfect stroke, they're just not all gonna go in. There's imperfections in the green, there's imperfections in the golf ball. The reason I brought that up is when they putt on that granite slab, when the dimples are rolling on it, you can really hear it kind of bobbling along. So they actually designed, again, Ping doing Ping stuff, they designed a perfectly smooth golf ball that they could test on this granite slab with the center mass of the golf ball really nice and level. That way they could hit these and it would just roll perfect every single time. So pretty cool. Now this putter was really nice. I like this one. I've gone a little bit more to a mallet style. Again, like the driver that has a really high, Ping is a leader in the MOI and the drivers. Same thing here with this type of putter. All this weight on the heel and toe with these tines really spreads out the off-center hits the center mass out to the sides like this, and it's going to keep the face from twisting, and it's going to make it go a little bit straighter than, say, a typical blade style, like an old school, like bullseye blade, just flat piece of metal. So it has a nice high MOI. One thing too is when I picked this putter out, I got one that's face balanced. I have a tendency myself to get a little bit over accelerating, so I'll tend to be a little short on the backstroke and then over accelerate coming through, which is a better way to do it than decelerating for sure. but I tend to go a little bit on the other end. So if I miss one, I tend to leave it a little bit out to the right. Having a face balance putter helps you to eliminate those misses out to the right. Now some putters will be toe down, like this, the center of gravity of the putter's toe down. That's gonna make the putter head wanna swing a little bit more. And your miss, if you tend to pull putts to the left, a putt like that, or putter design like that may be better for you. So the cool thing about this putter is you could get it in a variety of options. You can get it with a face balanced or a slight toe hang. They made two different models. And that depends on how the shaft goes in there is what changes it. But a pretty daggone cool putter. I hit a few with this. It feels really, really nice, and I can't say enough good things about it. So I'm excited to start testing this out too. Now before I move on from the putters, I almost forgot. Ping has something called, if you haven't heard of this, it's really cool. It's called the Gold Vault. So what they do is they have this special room and they have a replica. Everybody that's ever won on tour using a Ping putter, they have an exact replica with the same specs that they used, and it's a gold plated putter. Now, another thing that Ping does, again, they don't brag on themselves. They don't market a lot of these cool things that they do, but they actually send a solid gold replica of the putter to the player that won. So I believe Brooke Henderson actually has the most expensive one. She just won recently with one of these bigger mallet style putters. And the gold, just the gold alone that went into the mallet was worth $45,000. So it's pretty nuts. So they have over 3,000 different putters, all solid gold that they sent to players. So if you think about that, it's easy to say, oh yeah, it's Ping, it's a big company, you know, that's, you know, not that big of a deal. But if you think, hey, $10,000 to $15,000 of gold in every single putter, they've sent out over 3,000 of those, and then they don't even use that to market themselves and talk about that they're doing this. That tells you the kind of people that they are. They're doing the things that's right. They're going way above what's right, going the extra mile, and not even trying to market that themselves. So for me, I like that story to get out there. That's just kind of people that they are at Ping, and it's really cool. So another cool thing they had there was Bubba Watson. They had his wedge that he hit at Augusta, a replica of that one, when he hooked it out of the trees. So they had a solid, or a gold-plated replica of that. You cannot believe how big around the grip is. The grip is huge. He uses like 12 wraps, big oversized grip. It's turned sideways. It's like the weirdest club I've ever held in my life. So it's pretty neat. So let's go ahead and jump in here. Let's talk about, I believe the irons are in this box. We'll have to see. Yeah, nice. So these are the irons. So I went with again, I have a little bit of a tendency to spin the ball a little bit too much, so to kind of get up in the wind and go a little too high. So I went with the KBS Tour C-Taper, fairly low spin shaft, and I actually went with an S+, which is a little bit softer than I'm usually using, but it felt really good to me. And I went with the I-210 irons, and we'll show you some pictures of these close up. But these really felt nice and solid. One of the things that Ping originally did, and where they kind of broke the mold, was they started out with perimeter weighted putters. Everybody else was doing the flat, you know, remember the old style like Wilson 8802 or the Bullseye, just flat metal putter. And when they originally designed the perimeter weighted putter, that was pretty revolutionary. Now, when they did the same thing with our irons, they started making irons like that Ping I2 had the big high toe, and that was really to make the iron a lot more forgiving, and it was just way easier to play, and that's why that iron just really went up in value. It really exploded. Everybody started playing with it. And since then, what they've done through better and better engineering, they have tons of engineers there that are always working on super complicated stuff, but they found ways to make this club smaller, more compact, but not to give up the forgiveness. So even though I went with a smaller head, the I-210, their new 410 iron, I was really surprised by it. It's actually as forgiving as some of the older model Pings with a really wide, thick sole, big high toe. It's actually as forgiving as those. They found ways to make it just as forgiving, being as compact as that. So again, they're not going to put out clubs that don't meet the standards to their previous model. If it's not better than their previous model, they're not going to release that club. Now, think about that with other companies. I'm not going to name any names here, but there's companies out there that are releasing 2 and 3 and 4 drivers a year. Now, can you truly make a driver that is better from an engineering standpoint and make 4 brand new versions every year? I'm not saying that you can't, but it'd be pretty daggone tough. How could you come up with that much new stuff? I mean, you gotta think that the production on a new set of irons or driver or woods or whatever it is, a lot of times it gets started 3 and 5 years prior to it being released. So you'd have to be coming up with breakthroughs constantly, which probably really isn't possible. I think a lot of times they change up some things and they don't really perform any better, but they just know they can sell it if it's a brand new model. So I didn't get that sense at all when I went with Ping. Really cool. They did only put out clubs that were going to perform better. So that's why you'll see with Ping, they don't always release clubs right away. So sometimes it takes a little bit longer for them to get a club out because they haven't made it to where it's performing better than the previous model. And they're not going to sell clubs to you just because they know that you'll buy them because it's got a new paint job or it's a new this or that. You know, they're really making sure that it's the highest quality. So one of the things that was indicative of this, and this is not something you're going to hear you know, a ton, but they have a new low spin version so of their 410 driver. This driver's already really low spin, the normal 410 plus that I got. It's super high moment of inertia. I mean, it's as consistent as you can get. And the low spin version is trying to take a little bit of spin away from it, but they didn't want to release that until they were able to get the MOI, the moment of inertia, the forgiveness of that driver just right. They had a little bit of trouble with some of the manufacturing, so they said, okay, we're just not going to release it. Until it's perfect, until it's the way that we want it to be, we're not going to release the club. Now that probably costs the company hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost sales, but they're not going to give you a driver that they know is not 100% as good as it can be. So I love that approach because now they have you in mind. They're not going to sell something that's not the best for you. And I think that really says something when they're taking a loss profit-wise to make that happen. So it's pretty cool. So let me go ahead and unwrap the rest of these, then we'll jump over to the wedges and other clubs. All right, so the last box here we have, or one of the last boxes we have, is the wedges. And they make a few different models of these. These are what I would say is probably one of the best looking wedges I've ever seen. This is the Glide Forged. Let's make sure this is the right box. So I got a 56 and a 60. Actually, I may have got a 54 and got it bent to get a little bit more bounce on it. So I can talk about that very quickly here. So whenever you bend the loft of the wedge, you're either increasing or decreasing the bounce. So with this one, yeah, here's my 54. And I like typically a really high bounce wedge. So this is a 10 degree. I like it more around a 12 or 13. So what you can do is if you buy a club, and again, Ping does all this. They have they're kind of the first company that ever did all the different dots. So you see the black dots or red or yellow. That's depending on how your arm length and how tall you are, they can fit clubs specifically to you. But they're one of the best in the business with this. So they take a 54 degree wedge, and what happens is when you bend that to 56, you bend it open, you get a little bit more bounce on the bottom of it here. So this is a really nice, really cool looking wedge. I mean, when you look down at this, the shape of this just looks amazing to me. It's got a little bit of a higher toe, but it's not the real, some of the companies are making the high toe that are just way sticking out there. They look a little bit funny. This one's got a little higher toe, but it's nothing crazy. Really nice shape to it. And it's just a really pretty, beautiful, the sole or the design on the back of the club looks really, really nice, really sharp. So I got that one, the 54, bent 2 degrees open, so it's actually a 56. I've always gone gap wedge, so I did the gap wedge in the I-210, which I think is going to be really good for giving club. And I also got a 60, and in the 60, same thing, I like a little bit more bounce, so I got a 58 with 8 degrees of bounce, but it's opened up. So they bent it to be a 60 degree wedge just to get a little bit more on there. So a lot of times people think, oh, the bounce is going to, save me from chunking the club. It's gonna make my club bounce back up into the golf ball or something like that. That's not really how it works. Pretty much on most of your wedge shots, you're gonna have more than 8 or 10 degrees of forward shaft lean. And really what the bounce is doing is it's helping through contact with the ground interaction and how that feels, how it sounds. So I like a little bit more bounce. And people think, well, maybe you can't hit a flop shot with a lot of bounce, but that's not true either. When you open this up, lower your hands, you're gonna be able to hit this nice and high, even if you have a little bit of extra bounce on there. I think at one time, Phil Mickelson was using like a 10 or 12 degree bounce on his 60 when he was hitting those flop shots where he'd just stand right behind Dave Pelz and flop it right over top of his head like 5 feet away. So don't let a little bit of extra bounce scare you. It can help with the interaction with the turf. And it's a little bit of a safety cushion there too. If you hit slightly behind one, kind of helps it glide through the turf rather than kind of bouncing back up. And that's where probably where the name, the Glide, came from. Really good ground interaction from the sole design. All right, so 2 more boxes. This is the bag. They sent me a stand bag too in case I want to walk. And this is the bag that I was talking about like we played in college. I believe this is a hoofer bag. I haven't even checked it out yet. Yeah, so really sharp. They can get your name on there. It's like I was talking about, they're one of the biggest probably by far the biggest, putting personal, you know, put your name on there, put your logo, that kind of thing. And it's really affordable. So in college, we always played ping style bag, had the team on there. I went to Eastern Kentucky University in Kentucky, Richmond, Kentucky. We'd have our name on there, and it just feels cool. You know, you feel good about yourself. You got a nice looking bag with your name on it, just a little bit extra. Now, I got my favorite club I want to show you now. All right, so this is my favorite club. For those of you who don't know, I just had my first son. His name is Rhett Clay Ballard. He's about four months old now, and Ping does this thing where they have my first putter. So they'll actually design a little tiny putter for you. It comes with this is pretty cool. It comes with a shirt, like a little onesie there. It comes with a hat, Ping hat, so you can be all logoed out. And then it comes with a little tiny putter. And it's actually, the cool thing about this is it's actually a real putter. This is a real grip, this is a real shaft. It feels like a metal head. And just like Ping always does, like the weighting is correct on this. They didn't take like some big giant, really heavy metal head and stick it on a little tiny shaft where the kid couldn't even swing it. It's light enough to where the kid could actually putt with this. And on the face of it, we'll show you a close-up there. You can see it has the name of your child. It has the date that they're born, the weight, and it's really cool, all just kind of engraved on there. So you could actually play with this if you wanted to, or just keep it like as a little keepsake thing. But it's pretty neat because it is a real putter. This is exactly the same. So as soon as Rhett can get tall enough to stand up, we're gonna have to test out our new putter here. I've already got him kind of holding this thing in the crib, so really excited about that. All right, so hopefully watching this video, the one thing that came across to you is that Ping is willing to take a loss, a financial loss, or not make as much money, not by churning out tons and tons of product, by putting out clubs that they don't think perform as well as they can. They're willing to really put their money where their mouth is to do what's best for you, to only put out the best quality clubs. And that's why I'm really proud to be on staff with Ping. I like to think that Top Speed Golf has that same kind of philosophy. We only do what's right for you, and we're willing to put our money where our mouth is too. And we kind of show that with everything that we do. Now, stay on the lookout. We're gonna be going through, or I'll be going through, hitting the different clubs in videos to come, do more of a full review style, talk about some of the different settings and the ways that I would play these clubs and really how to get the most out of them. We also have a lot of distance training. We just finished our first distance course. We're getting about an average in a 3-week period of 12 miles per hour of club head speed gained, 12.7 right now, which is roughly 31 yards of distance. That's the average distance gain. We've had one player gain 27 miles an hour of swing speed, which would be like 70 yards extra distance on your best solid hit shots. So keep on the lookout for that. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you want to see these videos coming up, the Ping reviews, the more of the distance stuff we're going to be talking about. Be sure to hit that like, that really helps us out, and post your comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. Now, golf clubs can only do so much. In order to get the best performance out of our golf clubs, we have to have solid technique and solid fundamentals. I have one of my best distance videos here at the top of your screen. If you follow the drills in this video, you're going to be able to add 15 to 20 yards to your drives in just a single practice session. Now, down below that, you're going to see a video on consistency. We all want to hit that ball first and then make contact with the ground. This is one of the best videos, getting you that ball first contact so that you never have to worry about chunking or thinning those shots again.